Hello, everybody. My name is Mohit Reddy, and my presentation today is going to be about the news and climate change and how climate change is perceived by the public. So, the biggest thing that comes to my mind is when thinking about this topic is why do so many Americans still question climate change, even though it's a scientifically backed phenomena that has been studied for decades? Is the true controversy of climate change coming from science or rather politics, money, and the spread of pure misinformation? And the biggest question of all, how exactly did we get here? How exactly did we get politicians and world leaders questioning the validity of climate change? So, in my presentation today, I'm going to be going over the history of the debate of climate change in the US, the role of misinformation, the real world dangers, and solutions to said misinformation. So, I'm going to start off by talking about the origins of climate change. So, in 1896, Swedish scientist Svante Arrhenius first proposed the idea that an increase in carbon dioxide could lead to planetary warming. And then you fast forward to the 1950s when scientists like Charles Keeling start measuring atmospheric CO2 levels in the Earth and notice an upward trend. This upward trend is now called the Keeling curve. And in my opinion, in 1988, NASA scientist James Hansen testified in Congress that global warming has officially begun. And in my opinion, this was the biggest turn for climate science as a whole, as it saw a shift of climate change becoming more of a political issue rather than a scientific one. So, what led to this shift in controversy? So, in during the 1990s, fossil fuel companies such as ExxonMobil realized if people actually learned the truth about climate change, it would severely hurt their profits. So they started to launch doubt campaigns. And these doubt campaigns were fueled by think tanks such as the Heartland Institute, which saw the spread of misinformation and skepticism. Also, during this time period, climate change starts to become more and more of a political issue. So, what are the claims that were said during these doubt campaigns? Um, the biggest claim was climate change is a natural phenomenon and it's not man made. This isn't true. Another claim is that there is no scientific consensus on the issue. This as well isn't true. 90% of climate scientists believe that climate change is caused by human beings. And another claim is that no global warming since 1998. This is also false and misleading as it uses cherry picking data to get to that point. Another big problem that can be seen is that many news outlets, primarily the conservative ones, often use misleading headlines to downplay the effects of climate change on the earth. So, why the US in particular? So, the US is extremely politically divided, and due to this, everything becomes a political issue. And when you combine this with the fact that the US basically has a system of legal corruption known as lobbying, where fossil fuel companies can just pay the government millions and millions of dollars to pass environmental regulations that benefit them, and also combined with the public's mistrust in science and media outlets, it it creates a recipe for disaster, and that's what can be seen in current day America. So, what are the dangers of misinformation? So, the biggest danger is that policies are now delayed due to extreme debate, and this can lead to higher emission levels, which would speed up global warming. This can also lead to the second point, which is an increase in public confusion, as more and more people are are um are shown misinformation which can also alter their opinion on the issue. And the biggest is probably health and safety impacts, as an increase in emission levels will also lead to an increase in wildfires, floods, and heat waves. So how do we fix these problems? So the biggest thing is that we need climate education at all levels, especially in schools, to help people understand the science clearly and early. Second, science communicators need to engage in the public in honest, transparent, and relatable ways. Media literacy is also very important, as people should learn how to evaluate sources and recognize misinformation on their own. And finally, and probably the most important thing, is to hold corporations and politicians accountable for their actions, because they knowingly spread misinformation and falsehood for profit and political gain. So to conclude, climate climate change data has been manipulated by decades, and this manipulation has been taken advantage of by fossil fuel companies. Misinformation has real impacts, and those real impacts can be very, very uh, severe. People also need to stay informed, because this also lowers the impact of said misinformation. Politicians need to start supporting and passing science based policies rather than listening to large corporations that pay them millions and millions of dollars just to hurt the earth. And then, lastly, and most importantly, I think as a society as a whole, we need to start challenging misinformation and putting it to an end, because it's not beneficial for anybody at the end of the day. Thank you.